Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Today on the DCC guy, I want to take a look at the tools that I use for installing decoders in locomotives and for installing other DCC components on the layout. But before we get started, let me go ahead and explain something to you. As you can tell probably from the video and audio quality of this video, it's not the same as it has been lately. The reason being that the Sony Handycam that I had purchased in January to replace the other Sony Handycam that died in January has also died in less than 3 months of use. So it fortunately is under warranty and is sitting on a repair bench in Connecticut as I speak, and hopefully I'll be able to get it back within a week or so. So we're going to have a couple of videos probably that are going to be using this Coolpix camera, and it's not going to be the best quality, but it's all I have to work with at this point. Obviously, I don't recommend Sony Handycams anymore, and it's either going to be a Nikon or a Canon for me in the future. But let's go ahead and get started with the video. We'll talk about I'll be talking about the tools that I consider essential, and also some nice things to have when it comes to installing decoders and other DCC equipment on your model railroad. So let's go ahead and get started now. Okay, so first up, I know I've talked about soldering irons in the past, and I did a video on, a couple of different videos on soldering, but I wanted to go back and reiterate the importance of having a good soldering iron. You know, about a year ago now, I think it was, I wrote an article on soldering irons in Model Railroader, and I got an email or got in contact with a doctor out in Sacramento, California, who related a problem that he was running into with the Weller WC100 soldering iron station that I had been using and had recommended in the article. And he told me that he had a real problem with blowing decoders with that particular soldering iron. So I got in touch with Soundtrax, and what I found out was they were very familiar with that case because they had to replace a number of tsunami decoders that the doctor out there had blown. So they arranged for an electronic engineer to go out and check out what the good doctor was doing. And it turned out he had a very old Weller WC100 soldering iron station, and it was leaking electrons through the tip of the soldering iron. Because basically, we're running an electrical current through this soldering iron, and it heats up the tip. And if those electrons get out, they can damage the components. And that's what was happening. There was a very poor ground. The ground in that soldering iron had degraded, and it was killing those decoders. So he bought a new soldering iron and hadn't had any problems since. That's when I bought this Hakko kit, or Hakko soldering iron station, and relegated my Weller station to things like soldering track and places where they're not going to be involved directly with DCC components. So I recommend a very good soldering iron, one that you've checked into and make sure that it does not have problems with grounding issues and leakage, so that you don't run into the same type of issue. The $10 ones that you buy off of eBay or something like that, be ready for a problem. I just don't recommend something like that for sensitive electronics like we deal with. Okay, the other thing then that comes along with soldering is having the proper materials. And I like this Kester solder here. This one is a mixture of lead, tin, and silver. So it has about 2% silver in it. I got this one from a company called Engineering, and that's in with like in scale, engineering.com, and they sell this for electronics work. So it's very good for that. The diameter here is about 0.20 inches, I believe. 0.02. Yep, I'm sorry, 0.020 inches in diameter. So it's very small. And this is another one. This is 0.022 inches in diameter. And this is your standard 60-40 combination of tin and lead. So, this one I've had for 10 or 15 years now. This one's fairly new. I now don't recommend necessarily using the straight 60-40 There are other mixtures, 6337 I believe is a common one that works well as with this. So I would suggest, but make sure, get you something that's a very fine diameter, because you're going to be soldering to a lot of fine wires and contacts on circuit boards, so you need something small enough so you're not going to get solder all over the place. Okay, another thing, rosin core solder. Now, rosin core solder is made from resin from pine trees. Most solders, both of these solders that I have here, come with flux in them. I think this has about 2% flux in it, and I'm not sure about this one. But they both have flux. And generally, for most electrical soldering, particularly decoders and circuit boards and the like, I don't use flux. But I depend on the flux that's in the solder itself. However, for things like soldering rail feeders and rail joiners together, I will use this paste flux. And the reason I do that is because we apply a lot of heat, and it's easy to burn off the flux in the soldering, in the solder itself. And I just like to have that extra bit of flux on there. And I use the paste. You can get this in paste, and you can get a liquid flux. I prefer the paste flux because it's going to stick to the side of a rail or a wire or something like that, and it's not going to run off down into the roadbed somewhere. And I apply it using these are micro brushes that are used for makeup work, but you can buy these at your hobby shop for model railroading purposes. I think I got about 500 of these from a supplier in China off of eBay for 10 bucks or something. It was very inexpensive. And you can use these, and then after a couple of uses, throw them away. So give those a try. These are also great for painting in very isolated spots, hard to reach spots. Okay? Now, the next thing I want to talk about that's very important to have are a good pair of wire cutters. And this is your typical Juron track cutters, but they work good for cutting wires as well. And I got this, I think, from Micromark. The Hako soldering iron I got from, let me get this out of the way as a matter of fact, I got that off of Amazon. This particular set of wire strippers are interesting because you can adjust it. It's got a screw here that allows you to adjust exactly what the diameter of the wire that you're going to be cutting or stripping is. So that allows you, I've got several of these laying around. I think I got them from allelectronics.com for a few dollars each, and I have several of them around the railroad. And so I've got, one for very small wire, another one for the 14 gauge wire I use for my buses, and another for 18 gauge. So you can just do it that way. They're fairly inexpensive and easy to use. And of course, the wire clippers are great for cutting rails, but they'll also cut your wires as well. Okay, another thing that I use a lot of and have for many years is this Scotch double-sided foam tape. So it's got, sticky on this side and on the other side underneath here. And this stuff is great for attaching speakers, sugar cube speakers and the like, to the insides of your models, cab roofs and the like. I also use it to attach decoders to various spots inside the locomotive. You can use it in occasional uses for tacking wires in place, things of that nature. And I've even used this for attaching accessory switch decoders to tortoise switch machines. I have one old switchet that's probably been installed on a tortoise switch machine for probably 15 to 20 years. I'm not exactly sure when I put it on there. This stuff sticks and it seems to last forever. Okay, another very important thing that I use a lot of is heat shrink tubing. And I buy this, it comes from All Electronics. It's either, 3 or 4 foot long pieces. And then I cut it into smaller pieces that will fit in these drawers. This is an old embroidery thread storage cabinet drawer that I repurposed from my wife. And I just keep, a half a dozen different sizes of heat shrink tubing in there. And that way, when I need to do something, when I need to cover a wire splice or anything like that, I've got what I need. And this is critical because you want to always protect your wire splices, protect any joints that might short out. And you know, I can't go far enough in telling you this stuff is great. When you put it on, all you have to do is, you know, slide that over the splice and then heat it with your soldering iron, just like this. It will not burn, it will simply shrink. And it shrinks about 50% in diameter, and it has very little lateral shrinkage or longitudinal shrinkage. So it stays about the same length as you cut it and just gets smaller in diameter. And it's perfect for protecting joints. I also use it sometimes to slide over wires to protect them in spots where they might rub against flywheels or other moving parts in a locomotive. So I strongly recommend these. I buy a lot of stuff from allelectronics.com, and I'll be pointing that out as I go. Okay, so that's heat shrink tubing. Now, something that you really, I find absolutely essential is a couple of pair of tweezers or forceps. And you know, you get something with a little fine tip or something like this where you can pick up pieces of wire and the like, or hold it while you're soldering so you don't burn your fingers. So, you know, you can pick these up at Micromark sells these. You can find them on eBay. You can probably get these. I got most of this stuff at a train show, at various train shows. On the East Coast, there used to be a vendor called the Train Lady who sold all kinds of tools like this. And I've seen similar operations at train shows in Colorado. So you probably can pick these up fairly inexpensively, either off of eBay or at a train show somewhere. Okay, now those are the things I consider essential, but there are other things that are good to have. One thing that I've been using a lot for the last couple of years is this Kapton tape. And it's a specialized tape used in electronics, and some companies actually, you know, you'll find it on their decoders where they've taped things on them. It has been in use for a long time in electronics for aviation, missiles, you know, aircraft, space shuttles. All of them use this stuff. And it's really great tape for electronic applications. And I use it for anywhere from wrapping wires together to get them out of the way and taping them to the inside of locomotives, and all kinds of places where you might just need a piece of tape like that. It's very sticky, holds up under heat, and does a really good job. Okay, another thing, CA cement or super glue. I've been using this a lot lately for attaching LEDs to the lenses, the plastic lenses in the locomotives. And this particular one I like. It's Loctite super glue, and this is their Ultra Gel Control. Now, what that is, it comes out in a very nice gel form. So it will stick, it won't run off and get all over the place, and it gives you some time. It doesn't set up immediately, so it gives you a little bit of time to work with it. And I've also found that having some of the Zap super glue accelerator on hand is nice, because you can use one of those little brushes I showed you a minute ago and apply just a little touch of that accelerator to the super glue, and it will set up almost instantly. So you've got the control, the time to get your part into place, and then hit it with the Zap accelerator, and the combination works very well. So I recommend this one. I found this at a local Ace Hardware store. Okay, another thing that is very useful to have is a pair of hemostats. These come in handy for, you know, holding wire in the things like that when you're soldering it. I also use it in some cases as a heat sink. You can clip it to rails or something when you're heating it so that you don't melt the ties. And also, these are heat sinks. Now you can use a pair of these as heat sinks and clip them to the rail on either side of a place where you're soldering a rail joiner or a feeder, or you can clip these to the rails. And what they do is they just act as heat sinks and draw the heat away from the track instead of allowing it to spread out and melt the plastic parts of your rails. Okay, the other thing that I've been using a lot lately is this black Uhu black tack putty, and it's a dark gray. It's not really black, but I like that. I've also used the DAP blue stick here. And this seems to be pretty much the same stuff. This is blue, that's black, is the only difference that I've been able to see between them. And I used this on one locomotive to hold the headlight of the LED in place a little bit and prevent light leakage back into the cab. And I did a good job, but I could still see when the headlight was off, I could see the blue behind the lens. Whereas with the black tack, you don't see that. It tends to, it's black, okay? So it looks like the inside of the locomotive. So it's less of a problem. Now the only place, I got this at a local hardware store. The Uhu, I got it off of Amazon. And that's the only brand that I've been able to find. UHU tack, okay? And it's great. It's just a putty, and it does a very good job of staying flexible. It doesn't harden up and lose its holding power. So this is great for a number of places in locomotives to hold wiring in place, to hold LEDs in place, that kind of thing. Makes a very, very inexpensive way of doing that. And I've been using that a lot lately. Okay. Another thing that is very useful, not essential, but very useful, is a volt-ohm meter. And you can use these for checking voltages. You can use it for checking continuity, resistance, all kinds of things like that. And I'll be producing a video soon, I don't know exactly when, it's on my list, on how to use a volt-ohm meter for DCC and model railroading purposes. So this is a fairly inexpensive one. I think it was about 35 bucks. So that's as far as these things go, 35 is not expensive for a decent one. And this is very nice. It has what's called auto ranging, so it will automatically adjust the range of the readout to whatever it's seeing. So nice to have. Finally, one thing that I have found very useful for the last 25 years, I've been saving all of my wire left over from decoder installations. And so I have a lot of little pieces. If I need a piece of wire to do a splice or to lengthen a wire, I do have those to fall back upon. Also, Digitrax sells this bundle of wire, and it's the small flexible stuff that they use on decoders. And you can buy it. It's a very long bundle that is held together here, one end. And as you can see, it must be 6 feet of it there. But at any rate, it's very inexpensive, nice to have around for when you need to grab one of these very thin, flexible wires that they use on decoders these days. So it makes it a lot easier when you need to make a repair or to splice a wire in somewhere on a decoder installation. So that's about it. I'm sure there are things that all of you have that you use as well and consider an essential tool for use with DCC. So please add those to the comments. Share your thoughts with others using the comment field in YouTube. And I'm very anxious to see what people come back with, as I always have been. So that's all I have for this week. Take it easy, be safe, and hopefully by the time Friday rolls around, I'll have my other camera back, but I'm not counting on it. So I think I'll still probably be using the Cool Picks for Friday's video. So until then, have a good week. Bye now.